Hi, welcome to the November 4th, 2024 meeting of Adelaide Metcalfe Council. I will advise that Mayor Clark is absent, so in her absence, we'll appoint another chair. So the recommended motion is that council appoint Councillor Brody as the chair for the November 4th, 2024 meeting of council. Mover? Leanne, Councillor McKinnon. Seconder, Councillor Kingma.
Okay, so. All right, we're gonna call to order the meeting on Monday, November 4th to begin. Basically, I gotta say all this stuff here. No. Is there any declaration of community interest in general nature thereof? Seeing none, we can move on to. We do the additions to the agenda, right?
Yeah, geez.
We ask if there's any additions to the agenda. If not, I don't think there is. We'll just move to that the agenda for the November 4th, 2024 meeting of council be approved. Nominated from Garrett Kingma, second by Betty Ann. All in favor? It's good. Okay.
Minutes.
Okay, so we're gonna go into the adoption of the minutes of the Adelaide Metcalfe Council meeting held on October 22nd. Be adopted and printed. I'm sure everybody's read them. No errors or omissions. Mover Betty Ann, seconder Garrett. Everybody in favor? That's carried. Okay, so now we're gonna move into under the Drainage Act, a quarter revision for the Two Hill Drain 2024. Okay, so the recommendation is that council appoint Councillor Brody, Councillor McKinnon, and Councillor Kingma to the quarter revision for the Two Hill Drain 2024. Further, that council appoint Councillor Brody as the chair of the quarter revision for the Two Hill Drain 2024. Mover and seconder Betty Ann, seconder Garrett, all in favor? That's carried. So we're gonna open the quarter revision at 7:03 under section 97 of the Drainage Act as amended to consider the Two Hill Drain 2024. This quarter revision is, motion.
Yep.
Garrett Kingma, seconded by Betty Ann, all in favor? That's carried. This quarter revision is pursuant the report prepared by Spreed Associates dated August 7th, 24, which was considered and adopted at the consideration meeting held on October 7th, 2024, and pursuant to bylaw 53 of 2024, which received provisional reading by council. Section 54-1 of the Drainage Act provides that the decision of the quarter revision can be appealed to the Drainage Tribunal within 21 days from the date of the quarter revision. The final date of appeal is Monday, November 25th, 2024. The purpose of the quarter revision is to hear appeals regarding the schedule of assessment only. The schedule of assessment may be altered, but the total assessments must remain the same. If one assessment is reduced, then the other must be increased to balance. So second part is appeals from landowners. Okay.
Yeah, so you're just asking me if I received one.
So we're just gonna ask the clerk if he has received any appeals to the schedule of assessment for the Two Hill Drain.
Through the chair, we have not received any written material in regard to the Two Hill Drain at this point in time.
Next is if anybody in the member of the public has anything they wish to appeal of this scheduled assessment. I see there's three. Are there any questions?
You have one question. Can you state your name and address? Sorry, sir.
Do you mind coming up to the mic there? Be great.
John, can you?
Then Andrew can hear you.
Okay. It's Robert Edgar. I live at 6885 Petroleum Line in Brook, but I have a property on the Kerwin Road. The old Two Hill farm, in fact.
Okay.
And what I was wondering about is there's a possibility of getting money for berms. from St. Clair region. They administer it for the Ontario government. And I just wondered whether that is applied to the whole drain or to the people that have the berms.
I can answer that through you, Mr. Chair. I have some good news. Yes, there is money that is going to be provided based on what I can gather from the Conservation Authority, and that it will be applied to the whole drain because even if you have a berm on your property versus if you have it downstream or upstream, it is a benefit to the whole watershed. And that's the way that the engineer has assessed it. So that's the way that we apply it to the overall billing process, that we apply it to the whole watershed.
Well, not the answer I wanted, but I guess I'll live with it.
Betty Ann, Councillor Betty Ann has a question.
Through the chair to Andrew. Andrew, would it not be the individual landowners that would apply for that? Like, how will that grant be obtained if it isn't through the individual landowners? Can you clarify that, please?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, the municipality applies for that grant. We are required to submit an invoice to the Conservation Authority, and then they submit back to us a check just for billing purposes and being able to track that money. So we apply for it similar to the 1/3 grant from OMAFRA. We apply it to the project. So when it is billed out, all of the grants would have already been applied for, and we bill it out as if we've already received it.
Thank you, Andrew.
Is there any other questions from anybody in the gallery? If no, we'll move on. So I'd have to read this here. Or is that basically?
Just questions from the members.
Is there any other questions from council or any comments from Andrew from the Court of Revision?
I'll move that the court.
Okay, seeing that there is no issues, we got a mover from Betty Ann.
Yeah, you
Do I gotta
wanna
read
read
this?
that? Yeah.
Okay. So Court of Revision, that the assessments contained in the report for the topping drain is Two Hill Drain.
Yep.
Yeah, that's misread. Drain 2024 has been prepared by Spreed Associates.
Yep.
Dated
7th.
August 7, 2024.
Yep.
Okay, be confirmed and presented. Moved by Councillor Kingma, second by Councillor McKinnon, all in favor, and that's carried. So now we'll go into the adjournment, that the Court of Revision for the Two Hill Drain 2024 be adjourned at 7:08 PM. Councillor McKinnon, moved by, seconded by Councillor Kingma, everybody in favor? That's carried. You guys are free to go.
Welcome to stay though.
Yeah.
It won't be any more exciting than this.
You guys have a great evening.
Thank you.
Take care.
Let's see, say, looked up on his.
Okay, so to just say we're moving in the consent agenda?
Yep.
Okay, so we're moving now into the consent agenda. There is basically from 7A to 7J. Or 7I actually. Everybody read those and no issues or anything there?
This would be 7.
So I shall read this then for 7I.
Yeah.
So 7I is the 2025.
That item start here.
Okay. Item 7A through 7I listed under the heading of consent agenda for November 4th, 2024 be adopted as recommended. Councillor Kingma, second by Councillor Nordoff, all in favor? That's carried. Moving into correspondence. This is the action required stuff, correct? 8A, resolution from Ontario Good Roads Association, the Ontario Rural Road Safety Program. 8B, resolution from the town of Aurora, sustainable infrastructure funding. Counselor Kingla.
Yes, I would like if we could support this. I know the revenue potential that um, upper tiers could offer us is very enticing because revenues are not keeping up with the expenses for infrastructure improvements. So having a portion of the land transfer tax and the GST on new homes would be of great assistance to a municipality like ours.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Counselor McKinnon? All in favor? That's carried. 8C, resolution for Whitewater Region OPP funding support. Counselor Vidian.
I'd like to support that. We all know what the cost of OPP is, and it was downloaded to us several years ago, and I would like to see it back to them, to the province. So I'll move that we support the solution.
That's moved by Betty Ann. Any seconders? Counselor Nordoff, all in favor? And that's carried. Okay, so we will then file correspondence number 8A. That's it for that, right?
Yeah, move on, seconder.
Mover and seconder, Counselor Kingma, second by Counselor Nordoff, all in favor, that's carried. Okay, move on to staff reports, 9A, so the third quarter 2024 building activity summary from Arnie Marsman. We'll take that away, Arnie.
Yes, thank you through the Chair Brody. Good evening, council. I'm here tonight first to present to you the third quarter building permit activity report. Over the third quarter, what we've seen is pretty consistent with the previous 2 quarters of this year. In that it's not a great year to write home about, but the good news is you're paying the bills. I guess that's the bottom line. It has been a slow year for Adelaide Metcalfe and for most of Middlesex County. In my report, I provide 3 tables. Table 1 is a comparator just to show the activity number of permits, the number of dwellings, and the construction value in the 5 municipalities that we provide building inspection services for. You'll see that the numbers for Adelaide Metcalfe compared to this time last year, we went from 87 permits down to 59 and 13 new homes down to 8. Also, construction values dropped from 19 to 12 million. Those numbers are again, they're a significant drop from what we've seen last year, but we are confident that again the revenue brought in with these building permits will be enough for Adelaide Metcalfe to pay for Middlesex Center to provide building inspection services, and we already accumulated enough this year to cover what we expect for the year end. And also we have some projects that we're going to see approved in the fourth quarter this year that will pad the numbers a little bit better than what you see here. So for a rough year, generally it's a good news story. A lot of municipalities are seeing a much more significant drop, as you see again in table 1. Middlesex Center, for example, we've gone from 350 permits down to 260 and 87 new dwellings down to 47. So almost a 50% cut in new dwellings in Middlesex Center. And that also carried down into our construction value. North Middlesex is the leader this year. They've done very well. Actually, they have a new subdivision in Ailsa Craig that's brought their new dwellings. They went from 16 dwellings at this time in the third quarter last year up to 30. So they've almost doubled the number of new dwellings in North Middlesex, primarily due to the new subdivision in Ailsa Craig. Second table, the summary of fees and construction value. Numbers I already went over generally with council. It's a drop in all 3. But again, it's not awful, but it's a reduction. And what we're seeing in our crystal ball right now for the new year into 2025 is some positive comments from the building community with construction values. I think a lot of people are interest rates. The interest rates are going in the right direction, and some builders are fairly optimistic that next year we'll see a much better improvement from this year and even last year possibly. The third table is a detailed breakdown of what we see in the third quarter with regards to the different types of permits. So single family dwellings, garages, dwellings, pools, farm buildings, etc. They're all summarized in there if you're wondering what we've seen so far this year in each category. So based on that, I'm free to answer any questions with regards to permit activity.
Okay, thanks, Arnie. Is there any questions from council? Not at this time. Okay, so we'll move over, that the third quarter of 2024 building activity summary be received for information. Mover, Councillor Kingma, second, Betty Ann. All those in favor? That's carried. So next we move into building services agreement, again from Arnie Marsman.
Chair Brody, so Middlesex Center has been providing building inspection services for Adelaide Metcalfe, as well as North Middlesex and Southwest Middlesex for 3 years now. It's year 3 of a 6-year agreement, and after 3 years, the agreement requires an evaluation of the payment process, how the costs are determined between yourselves and Middlesex Center, and for that to be revisited. So we're at the end of year 3, and what we're presenting to council is a new calculation. There's a couple of variables that go into the calculation of how our costs are proposed to be presented to your municipalities and valued out, in part based on the assessment value of the municipality and in part based on how busy you were in the previous year to 18 months. It's a combination of those two variables that comes up with what we see will be an ever-changing estimate for the future years. We would provide this information to Johnny for the future budgets every October based on the previous year's activities, just to be more fair. Also, with this agreement, we're bringing in bylaw enforcement services. So similar to what we're doing with Luke and Medolph, Middlesex Center not only provides building inspections services to Luke and Medolph, but we're also providing bylaw enforcement services to Luke and Medolph. And speaking with your staff, I know through council as well, there's interest in Middlesex Center providing bylaw enforcement services to Adelaide Metcalfe. And so we've written that into a revised agreement as well. With actually the agreement that we're proposing to take to council mirrors the agreement that we're taking to Luke and Medolph as well. So the agreements are consistent, the rates are consistent, which makes it a lot easier for us. And so we've written that into the agreement for council to review. At the end of the agreement, you can see the calculation formula of how we've costed out the 4 municipalities. So the 4 municipalities being Adelaide Metcalfe, Luke and Medolph, North Middlesex, and Southwest Middlesex. This is for building inspection services. Amongst those 4 municipalities, we have appointed 2.5 building inspectors, or 2.5 full-time equivalents, I guess, to provide inspection services to those municipalities. And like I mentioned before, it's going to be weighted out each year based on how busy the previous year was, and also based on the overall assessment of the municipality. The Schedule A of the agreement shows those weighted numbers and some totals. There is a page 2 to this that didn't make it to council's report, but it provides a bit more of a detailed breakdown of how we weight the assessment value and the previous building permit activity. And we certainly can provide that to council following today's meeting if you'd like to view that as well. So essentially what we're taking to council today is a revised agreement with a simplified payment schedule and some consistent wording with Luke and Medolph so that we can establish bylaw enforcement services for Adelaide Metcalfe. So I'm happy to speak to that.
Okay, thank you, Arnie. Any questions from council at this point? Councillor Kingma?
Thank you. Through the chair to Arnie, Councillor Kingma speaking. I was wondering why the building official services and bylaw enforcement services aren't in separate agreements.
Yeah, through the chair, just to simplify it, this is consistent with how we've done it with Luke and Biddulph. So rather than a separate contract, we've entered into the same, we put them both in a similar agreement for no particular reason, honestly. But we just found it easier with Luke and Biddulph to have one agreement that covered both services, and we've carried that into this one as well.
Any other questions from council? Councillor Kingma?
Yes, thank you. Just to follow up, Arnie. The billing practices aren't going to be the same though between the two practices, right? There's going to be differences.
Yeah, through the chair, that's correct. Billing for bylaw enforcement services will be on demand. We'll track our hours and our mileage. The good news is that generally with bylaw enforcement services, there's no urgency that you need to get out there the same day that an event is happening. Quite often it's a property standards matter that our building inspectors are out and about doing inspections. Our building inspectors will also act as bylaw enforcement officers, and they'll do those inspections, in an efficient manner that while we're in the community doing inspections, we'll also follow up with bylaw enforcement complaints. But correct, it's not included in the cost for building inspection. We'll split the costs in a reasonable way so that if it's one trip, say to Kerwood for a building inspection and a bylaw matter, then we'll likely split that cost both through bylaw enforcement and building inspection.
Councillor Kingma?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry to beat the drum on this, but I'm being asked to approve something without a fee structure. Does that bother anybody?
Betty Ann, you got a comment on that?
I'm assuming that what he's placed before us is a fee structure, 80,000 for 343. Is that not correct, Art?
Yes, through the chair, there is a fee structure for the building inspection services. Correct, it's approximately 80,000. And in section 4.1 of the agreement, it's an hourly rate for bylaw enforcement. So rather than just say a flat fee of $500 a month, whether you need us or not, it's $64.21 an hour based on the actual demand. And I'd say if something significant comes up, that's something where staff would speak to your staff and come up with something reasonable.
Any other questions from council? Seeing none. Okay. Recommendation is that council approve the revision to the current building inspection services agreement with the municipality of Middlesex Center, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the building services agreement. Moved by Councillor Nordoff, second by Councillor McKinnon. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried to be approved. Thanks, Arnie. Okay, moving on. Next, 9C, we have a request for a quotation for engineering services for the Lions Drain, the Lenting Drain, the Branch J Drain, Winter Drain, and Burton's Stockman Drain. Was that through Andrew? Oh yeah, Andrew's still here. Take it away, Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, or Mr. Mayor. Yes, as mentioned, there were 4 drains that there were RFQs that were sent out on September the 12th of this year. And the RFQs were closed on October 22nd of this year at noon. And they were reviewed by myself and financial analyst Nicole Lewis. And what we have before us is the chart with the numbers that were provided. And for simplicity's sake, I can allow the council to read the numbers. And what I've done here is I put in bold the ones that were the lowest. So the Lenting Drain, Branch J, Winter Drain, and Stockman Burton's Drain. The lowest was Spreet and Associates. And for the Lions Drain, the lowest was R. Dobbin Engineering. And as you can see, M. Garrett's Consulting had not submitted any numbers. So that was a non-submission. So at this point, I would recommend that council accepts the submission by R. Dobbin Engineering for the Lions Drain Engineering, and that council accepts Spreet Associates for the Lenting Drain Branch J, Winter Drain, and Stockman Bertman's Drain for engineering services in accordance with the procurement policy that the municipality works within. And I'm open for questions if there are any.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Any questions from council? Seeing none, we have a recommendation that council accepts the submission by R. Dobbin Engineering, Inc. in the amount of 27.5 to write a report for the reconstruction of the Lions Drain in accordance with section 78 of the Drainage Act. Mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Kingma, second by Councillor Nordoff. All in favor? That's carried. That council accepts the submission by Spreet's Associates in the amount of 21,390 to write a report for the reconstruction of the Lenting Drain Branch J in accordance with section 78 of the Drainage Act. Mover and second to that one, Betty Ann, second by Councillor Nordoff. All in favor? It's carried. Next, the council accepts the submission by Spreet's Associate in the amount of 23,820 to write a report for the reconstruction of the Winter Drain in accordance with section 78 of the Drainage Act. Mover and seconder. Move Councillor Nordoff, second by Councillor Kingma. All in favor? It's carried. Next, the council accepts the submission by Spreet's Associate in the amount of 13,750 to write a report for the construction of the Stockman Burton's Drain in accordance with section 4 of the Drainage Act. Mover and seconder, Councillor Nordoff, second by Councillor McKinnon. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, thank you, Andrew. I think you're off the hook now.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, so moving on to item 9D is tandem snowplow tender results. Supposed to be a report from Calder, who is not here tonight, so I believe Morgan's going to take that one over.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to the rest of council. As council may remember, earlier this year, you approved a pre-budget purchase of a tandem snowplow. The tender was released on September 30th and closed October 16th. We received 2 bids. The lowest bid had a difficult timeline for township staff, so we're recommending the second bid so that we can get the snowplow in a more timely fashion, the difference being about $12,000. I just want to take a quick moment to recognize that this was in collaboration with Middlesex County, the procurement services that are being offered, which is actually quite nice in my perspective, because I had a little less to do in this process, which opened me up to do other things. Beyond that, there's a recommendation for council to consider, and any questions, I'm happy to answer them as much as I possibly can.
Okay, thank you, Morgan. Any questions from council? Seeing none. Okay. So the recommendation is that the Township Public Works Manager be authorized and directed to award the request for tender AM 2024-07 to Premier Truck Group of London in the amount of $398,500 before taxes. Further, that the Township Public Works Manager be authorized to execute on behalf of the Township of Adelaide Metcalfe all agreements and other documents necessary to implement this award. Moved by Councillor Nordoff, second one by Councillor McKinnon. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, on to 9E, the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund 2025 allocation, and this one's up for Johnny Pereira, our treasurer.
Thank you, Chair. Through to council. Yes, the OMPF is the province's main general assistance grant to municipalities. The main core grant component of OMPF that the township qualifies for is the Rural Communities Grant, which aims to address the unique challenges of a rural municipality. So due to the funding reduction in prior years, the township collaborated with Southwest Middlesex to undertake a joint delegation with the Ministry of Finance in January 2022, emphasizing the importance of this funding. So for 2025, the province has announced an increase to the OMPF funding by $50 million, bringing the total allocation to $550 million. And I believe it's going to be further increased by another 50 million next year, bringing the total funding envelope to $600 million to be allocated over the 390 eligible municipalities for this funding. So for 2025, Adelaide Metcalfe is looking at an increase to OMPF, which is the first time in a number of years. So a 9.5% increase, so about $26,600. So the report does go through the details of how we arrive at the specific allocation, but based on the key metrics, the main reason why we're increasing over 2024 is largely in part due to the increase to the overall funding envelope altogether, as the key metrics have remained the same, fairly close from year to year. The report also briefly outlines how our allocation compares to neighboring municipalities as well. Yeah, the rest of the information is in the report. I'd be happy to answer any questions. The recommendation is to receive the report as presented.
Okay, thank you, Johnny. Any questions from council? Seeing none, that's great to hear that we're getting an increase because we like the funds to roll in, as Sue would say. All right. Recommendation is that the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund 2025 allocation report be received for information. Mover by Councillor Kingma, second by Councillor Nordoff, all in favor, and that's carried. Okay, next we're going to move into closed session. So that is at 7:32 p.m. Okay, so council adjourn. Recommendation is that council adjourn to closed session at 7:32 p.m. pursuant to section 239, subsections 2 and 3.1 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended to discuss the following materials. 3.1, a meeting of a council or local board or of a committee of either of them may be closed to the public if the following conditions are both satisfied. The meeting is held for the purpose of education or training the members. Number 2, at the meeting, no member discusses or otherwise deals with any matter in a way that materially advances the business or decision-making of the council, local boards, or committee. Council Code of Conduct, education session. And then E is a litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. So that's the servicing agreement between Adelaide Metcalfe and Strathroy Caradoc. Need a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Kingma, seconded by Betty Ann. All in favor, and that's carried.